This podcast is part of E2C Network, where we share the whole Auburn experience. David Housel described it best. We are living the whole of the Auburn experience. You can quantify it, you can qualify it through a variety of methods, time, people, places, and things. But at its heart, at its core, the Auburn experience is all about Auburn sports, Auburn culture, and Auburn family stuff. An easier way to say it might be, though, if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. So thank you so much for what we're going to be getting into today and doing on episode 129 of the Auburn Experience podcast. As always, I'm your host, Kyle Loomis. With me, alongside me, letting me have a week off on, to go to a certain place I'll talk about in a second. Austin Scott, happy to be back in the saddle with you, sir, for the Auburn Experience.
Well, thank you. Happy to see you, War Eagle. Hope you had a magical time. I only talk to you on Sunday nights anyway, so you were giving the rest of our viewers and listeners who gave you the week off. Really, It's not like we talk any other time of the week.
You make it sound like we can't stand each other off when this mic goes off, when the camera goes off. That was just a great way to set this up. We don't talk about anything else ever.
No. But I do hope you enjoyed your time. It's good to see you. You look refreshed, and I know you didn't come back to any news at all, so it's good to have you back.
No news whatsoever for those of you that have been following Ever to Podcast, which has been that daily audio format thing I've been doing for you guys. I told you we weren't going to have one on Thursday because that was the day of my vacation starting, and then all of it just broke loose, and we certainly had to squeeze one in there. So hope you all enjoyed that surprise episode in that format. We got a big show for you today. Obviously, Auburn potpourri is coming up here in just a second. All the random Auburn news, two major topics for you on episode 129, the 2024-25 athletics results, what year in review, recap. Kyle, just use simple words. It's a great thing. Recap, and then we're going to take a look at those kickoff times and windows for Auburn football 2025 schedule that were announced this past week. So much to get into, but let me start us off with this, Austin. I want to see how your Auburn experience was this week. I'll give you mine. And anything special happened for you this week that got you excited in the Auburn experience?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's, being a resident, we tend to take campus walks pretty often. My lovely mother-in-law and mother were in town this week to help me manage the two tornadoes while Emily was in Birmingham for work. So my mom and I got to take a little bit of a trip on campus and show her kind of one of our routines. And if you've never been to the right side of Langdon, you would see Davis Hall, where there are three airplanes strung in the window, kind of breezeway.
Aerospace engineering building, for those of you that don't know that. Yep.
That's correct. Those are very popular in our house. And so we went to see the airplanes. But if you take a right in there, you can also walk through some of the aerospace engineering hallways and offices. And we got to see a few of the faculty members. There was a large cutout of Aubie in a space uniform. That was a big hit, as you can imagine. So just really cool to see. It was the middle of the day on a Friday. Still very active campus in the summertime, but maybe inspired some aerospace engineers future in the class of 2045. So who knows?
You may be set up for life if you got two aerospace engineers coming out of Auburn.
It could be worse.
And I also want to point out that not only did you reveal to us last week, I think it was last week, that we were transitioning from Bubby to Aubie. Now you're just acknowledging full Aubie now.
We're full on Aubie. We know the difference between Aubie and Auburn now. We can say the difference between Aubie and Auburn. I know it, I see it. It brings a tear to your eye. It brings one to mine as well. It's a massive milestone. Some people celebrate standing up, walking, pooping in the potty by themselves, but which we're not there yet. But Aubie and instead of Bobby was a big moment in our house.
Well, let me just go ahead and with that transition of pooping, happy Father's Day to you, by the way. So
it's a glamorous job sometimes. But thank you. I hope everybody has a happy Father's Day. There are plenty of circumstances in this world where fathers are celebrated and some still to be eventually. But thank you. I appreciate that. And Happy Father's Day to all those out there. Tell me your Auburn experience this week.
Yes. So most of you know, I went to a certain little place down south, and there's a lot of magic there in the air and all that kind of stuff. Had definitely one solid Auburn War Eagle moment. We like to share those things here. It was in line at Jungle Cruise, and I don't know if you've ever been there. So obviously I was at Disney World.
One of my favorites.
Yes. Jungle Cruise, a lot of hokey jokes, dad jokes.
My favorite. My favorite. They always know if you get me on Jungle Cruise, you're going to get a laugh every time.
I give him the pity laughs the entire time.
I love it.
But so me and this guy this entire time are going, he's ahead of me in the line, switchback line, if you know what that is.
Yeah.
And so finally we get to that moment where we can acknowledge each other, and we do the whole War Eagle thing. So that was my solid one. We saw a couple other Auburn fans. I'm going to just say this and throw it out there. I'm not that we'll initially, maybe I'll tag him or whatever. I believe I saw Rhett Hobart there. I'm just saying, there was a guy that I saw wearing an Auburn hat, Hollywood Studios, walking past very quickly of each other. And I went, is that who I think that is? If those of you don't know, Rhett Hobart's lead of the fan experience team at Auburn Athletics. And we've talked about the great work he and his group do there. Now, I'm saying this, it probably wasn't him, but it sure did look like him. I just spoke with him like the week prior. So it was kind of like, well, what are the odds? Not that you'd see an Auburn person down there, but that you would see someone in that position within the Auburn space. So
maybe so.
Maybe so. Maybe we'll tag him and see how, and he'll be just like, that's kind of weird. No, I was not anywhere near there. So you have a doppelganger, Rhett, in case you're wondering, or maybe that was you. But a couple War Eagle moments for me this week in the Auburn experience down in the most magical place on earth. Let's do some potpourri time. It's time to catch you up on all the Auburn news that we're not going to spend as much time in the main topics about. Let's start off with some football recruiting. I know that's going to get everybody jazzed up, jammed up, jelly tight here. Big week to start off last week. Obviously, we're recording on a Sunday, so it's been several days since this news came out. For Auburn football, they got 2 commitments on the day, one for 2026 and one for 2027. So let's start with 2026, and I believe he was the first one of the day. Eric Perry, not Eric Berry, as I find myself slipping into the old Tennessee and the late Tennessee defensive back. But Eric Perry is a Mississippi running back coming to be with the Auburn Tigers, or at least committing, not obviously officially signed yet, and adding potentially to what is always a great and storied history at the running back room. Another early and nice addition. Well, not early, because we're kind of full blown into 2026 at this point. But the running back room is getting their next person on that class. So, any thoughts about him?
Well, with every year, first and foremost, with every year we get more into recruiting, it just sounds later and later. And I'm like, we're talking about kids in 2026.
I know.
And that's like the current one. We're about to talk about 2027.
Yeah.
But Eric Perry, another Mississippi guy. There's plenty of connections in the state of Mississippi on this staff. Derek Nix, his future offensive coordinator, being one, has lots of ties there. So not surprising. And like you said, it's a storied position at Auburn at the running back spot. Not a hard sell, I would think, to Eric Perry, and hopefully he's the next in a long line of greats.
Yes, obviously the running back room right now is quite full, but you're going to have Damari Alston leaving after this year. Theoretically, obviously, everybody seems like got an extra year somewhere.
Who knows?
You got Jeremiah Cobb, who will be effectively a senior after that point, and then you've got some new ones coming in. Omar Mabson, you've got Alvin Henderson, you've got Darrell Robinson, who's been around. So this is just another adding to the room and building up that depth over time. Certainly excited to see what Eric Perry can potentially bring to the table. 2027, by the way, I think is like the kickoff this week for 2027 recruiting. Kenyatta Watson was doing all his stuff on social media the past couple of days, who's obviously one of Auburn's most valuable recruiters, and thankfully we did not let him get stolen this past off season. That there was an attempt. And that's all it was, an attempt, not successful. But anyway, so 2027 commit this past week. We had Jalen Scott, defensive back, most likely a safety type of position for him. becoming the first in the 2027 class. Are we too early, Austin, or is this just something just to go ahead and get excited about?
Well, it's early, sure, but you always hear of guys, certainly that do a lot of flipping and a lot of playing the game. But you also always hear about a lot of guys who get it over with early and stick it all the way through.
Yeah.
So you never know, but certainly hope Jalen Scott's one of those. Look, his last name's Scott, so he's got to be great.
I knew you were going to do this.
He's got to be great. He's already making wise decisions, so I have no doubt that Jalen Scott. I mean, with a last name like that, how can you not be successful at Auburn? Am I right?
Can we just go ahead and acknowledge how many Scotts have you gotten? We had Tyler Scott, who unfortunately got an injury. I feel like there's several others. Yeah. Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. Sorry about that.
He went to Colorado, though, where
other connection out there. Basically, what I'm hearing here is there's a Scott connection all over the place.
Well, first off, and I mean, this is just the honest truth. There's a good amount of people that have a Scott in their bathroom right now on the toilet paper rack. So we literally are everywhere. We've talked about a lot of poop so far on this episode.
What is? Are we good? Like, are you having some issues?
I'm just saying we're taking over the world, and Jalen Scott's the next one to come take over at Auburn. So welcome, Jalen. Make sure your NIL paperwork is proper, and you could have your own toilet paper company Monday.
Wow, what a great pitch! Actually, you brought the poop talk back to something of relevance. So I'm very impressed by that. Well done, sir.
Thank you.
Tyler Scott certainly could be very crucial. Those first ones tend to be the leaders of a 2027 class or any class. And certainly if he'll stick around and take ownership of that, that could be a great role for him in this just early recruiting cycle for 2027. Let's talk about a little bit of university news, a little bit academic stuff, but I think it's important for us to always remind these things to people because as we talked about last episode, people always come back to Auburn like things are changing. Everything's, growing up, getting, buildings are leaving. Well, announcement this past week that if you know where Spidal Hall is, which is a very probably passed over building heading down some of the main concourses and such or roads of Auburn. You'll know it's the building if you're coming down from Toomer's Corner just past the library. It has been home for various departments, human sciences, and it still will be in some capacity. But starting this fall, I believe, the demolition of Spidal Hall will take place and a new building to house human sciences to bring them all under one roof, the Barbara Drummond Thorne Academic Research Facility. Wow.
Oh, they've got a name for it. I didn't know they had a name
for it.
Yes,
Barbara Drummond Thorne Academic and Research Facility. Quite the name for that one.
How's that spelled?
With the E. With the E. Yes, I knew where you're going with.
Be a lot of fun with that one.
Don't think there's any relation there. But Spidal Hall will leave and be completed in the summer of 2027 with a new building that will house all of human sciences. And this will require, and this is an important thing here, Austin. Certainly we love seeing, investments being made in Auburn in any regard, but this is yet another reason to believe that Haley Center will survive because for 2 years, they are going to be relocated to Haley Center. Yeah. So I think we've real quick thoughts on that or anything that sticks out to you from that.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say I've ever been in Spidal. I've been
one time.
To it. One time. I've been to it and around it. A good friend of ours in college was a nutrition major, and all her classes were in there. And so I remember meeting her there before we would all go get lunch several times. But definitely very familiar with where it is. It's not central, but it's in the heart of campus and near downtown. Very close to where we've gone on location at times.
Yep.
I think a pretty big factor in this could be there's a lot of people that tailgate right around there out front of it in between there and the parking deck. If it's coming down this fall, that you might be looking for a new tailgate spot for this season. So we'll and maybe in the future, but depending on how big this building is. So
right.
That's something to think about. But it's one of the older buildings. It kind of looks more outdated on Auburn's campus. And so I'm sure it's going to be a really great addition for the College of Human Sciences and a fresh look for them.
So what I also think this means, referencing the 2-year relocation to Haley Center, I think what we found Haley Center's if usefulness is going to be for the foreseeable future of kind of the mixed building, and it's kind of always been that in
Right.
some way. But I would like to propose something. Why don't we just make Haley Center, because we get more and more every single year, just the freshman classes thing, because they're having all their dorms right there too.
True.
But it just feels like they're kind of using that as a space to, if you don't have a home or we need to put you somewhere, my gosh, let's put you in Haley Center, and you might get lost in there forever. But
yeah, well, the College of Ed is gone out of there, and so there's plenty of space. And like you said, freshman classes tend to be in there. We've talked about at length the bookstore is getting renovated, so I don't think it's going anywhere. So they're finding uses for it.
Definitely. Well, I'm glad Haley has a use, and I'm glad that they are making investments for human sciences. Their new home to be here in 2027, summer of 2027. We'll obviously probably post some construction updates about that for all of you, those of you that love those things that we do. Finally, let's go back to sports here. Announcements in basketball schedules finally, Austin. I was lamenting that for weeks. You had to hear that from me about where's all the Auburn men's and women's basketball scheduling news. We're getting some. The ACC and SEC challenges have been announced, and we've got the men's and the women's ones. Both will be played Wednesday, December 3rd. Let's start with the men. Your Auburn Tigers are slated to play on Wednesday, December 3rd. The NC State Wolfpack. We just got fresh off of getting whooped in the Super Regional, I might add. It has nothing to do with men's basketball, but I'm going to relate it somehow. They will be coming to Neville Arena to compete in the ACC SEC Challenge. Your thoughts on the Wolfpack and Will Wade coming to Neville?
Yeah, Will Wade is obviously, this will be his first year at NC State, back at a high major program after being really successful at McNeese State from his falls from glory. And so, it's an enticing matchup because they're going to be a really athletic, really good team. I do feel the same sentiment that some Auburn fans do of Auburn just came from getting at Duke. They were the number 1 overall seed last year, went to a Final Four. Should they have garnered a higher caliber opponent to get in Neville Arena? I feel that. I think that it would have been, Florida is going to be going to Duke. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me why Duke gets 2 home games in a row in this challenge, but that they're the blue blood of all blue bloods to some. So I would have loved to see a Duke or a North Carolina or Louisville come to Auburn. But I think, we know how Neville Arena is and how much the fans love to be in there. And I think they'll have no problem packing it out. I just would have loved to see Bruce Pearl get one of those teams to come play him at his place, and kind of an unprecedented move for Auburn basketball. But it's going to be a great game. Will Wade and Auburn are plenty familiar with each other, and that'll be enticing enough.
It will be enticing. Certainly, you would hope to have gotten maybe your Duke or your North Carolina or something like that, the way Auburn has been performing under Bruce Pearl consistently. But, NC State has a proud history as well with Jim Valvano and other coaches as well. And certainly Will Wade, as much as there's a lot of disdain for him, he is a great basketball coach. Obviously, clearly, this speaks for himself, the places he's gone and won. But certainly there are other things going on there, which will make probably for a lot of good fodder for the jungle to have fun with on that week. I'm looking forward to the matchup regardless. I'm just happy to know putting a few more of the pieces together in the Auburn men's basketball schedule. And finally, women's basketball is part of the ACC SEC Challenge. So again, Wednesday, December 3rd. They have been announced that they will travel to Syracuse. So that means not in Neville, but up at the Carrier Dome is where they play still. You still are going to just have a ton of orange and blue. They are literally called the Orange, and then they have orange and blue. It's going to be so confusing whether it was at Neville, the Carrier Dome, or whatever. But under first-year head coach Larry Vickers, heading on up to New York to take on the Syracuse Orange women, I guess? Or are they just the orange?
The orange women. Yeah, I mean, I think the Auburn women's basketball tweet was it's going to be a whole lot of orange, and it will. They're an orange and navy type school. So, one of those schools that really matches up well with Auburn's colorway. Will be really interesting for Larry Vickers. That's a very what's my word here? Historical building that's seen a lot of basketball and a lot of really good basketball. So I'm sure that's really exciting for him and this Auburn women's team. And And we still don't know a whole lot about what they're going to look like this year and the style of play he'll bring, but certainly a big test and a good trip, fun trip for them in the SEC ACC Challenge.
Yeah, and not to say that they needed an easier test, but this is a first year for a head coach, and I'd like to see them. And look, I'm not going to act like I know what's going on with Syracuse. They could be outstanding in women's basketball. I'm just going to be honest. I don't know, but it's not the names that we traditionally see coming out of
Correct.
It is going on the road. It's going to be tough no matter what at a historic building. And then you got the element of kind of heading up towards his old stomping grounds. I know Virginia is still a far cry from Syracuse, but it's kind of like that nice halfway point for Coach Larry Vickers with his current home and his former home and being up there. So maybe he'll get some personal support also going up to support the Lady Tigers take on the Orange. What a weird name in the ACC SEC Challenge. So that is your scheduling news for them and for the men as well. They are set for the ACC and SEC Challenge. Let's move on into our first major topic this evening. Austin, your 2024-25 athletic calendar year is officially complete. Here we sit again, my friend. It's over.
It's over. We told people last week it was not over. After last week when baseball ended on Saturday, we said 24 hours later, we said this is not over. You still got some things to look out for this week. But now, as we sit on Sunday, June 15th at 8:28 p.m. Central Time, it is over. The track and field portion of the year is ended, so that concludes the Auburn athletic season for the year.
It is. So what we're going to do is spend a very brief on each, or try as many as we can, program to just give you the high points of what happened this year. Most of you know a lot of these things, but we want to make sure we remind you and take stock of what we have here in the Auburn experience as we talk about, because we recognize most of you come for the football, the men's basketball, the baseball, the softball, maybe some gymnastics as well. But there's a lot more. There's more things going on here that we need to be thankful for and aware of what's going on, even if it's not a great thing in the program, because that's how you value the trajectory you may be heading towards improving or what you do need to improve as a program. So this is a recap for 2024-25. Let's start in the fall. Can't go any further without talking about football. 5-7, second year under Coach Hugh Freeze. Not great. Certainly we are starting to see some of the dividends of recruiting show out individually out there on the field. But not a year that everybody was pleased with. Certainly created some conversation around that if you take yourself back to that point, Austin.
Yeah, it really feels like a long way away now. And now we're at like 70 days until the next season. 70, is that right?
75 as of today, I believe.
75. There you go. So, I mean, we're really close. But, back at that point, I think a lot of people had pretty high hopes going into year two. Whether it be, a certain win total or just the recruiting, it was an uptick, and it was finally thinking maybe we'll see some guys on the field, a really highly touted freshman class in Cam Coleman, DeMarcus Riddick, others. And it just didn't pan out the way a lot of people wanted. I think there were strides seen, but just not quite there. So it's a big year three going into year three for this football staff. I think they know that better than anyone, as we've said before. But definitely an underwhelming start to that calendar year for Auburn athletics in terms of its big sport.
Yeah, and it tends to set the temperature for the year with the Auburn fandom. Certainly, as we'll talk about, some things can raise or lower that temperature, make it more palatable. And there's a lot of good this year, folks. But certainly, football is one of those things that felt a bit of a drag at times, but that doesn't mean that's the way it's going to remain. The other sports that were in action in the fall: soccer, volleyball, and cross country. We'll talk about a few things here, but just as an overview real quick, soccer went 13-4-4 to the second round of the NCAA tournament, and a big change in regimes here. Volleyball 14-13, kind of headlined not by a not so great SEC performance, but had a big win over Kentucky, which is a big time opponent in volleyball. If you don't know that, I was there for that one. We saw it happen in person. It was a lot of fun to be at. And cross country sent 3 individuals to nationals. I forget her first name, but Jep Cheer did really well, I believe, in the cross country situation there. Now, soccer, I think, is the thing we have to touch on to round out fall, because it was the final season of Coach Karen Hoppe and shifting into Coach James Armstrong, returning from Mississippi State and previously an assistant coach under Coach Hoppe to be here. So, Austin, I'll be honest with you. I heard through the grapevine, and all it is speculation at that time I heard this, that there were not a lot of high hopes that this year was going to be very strong. I also didn't really have it in my head that Coach Hoppe was going to leave. But what ended up happening was a very strong year for Auburn soccer. And then Coach Karen Hoppe broke our hearts because she was the longest tenured coach left at Auburn, by my calculations, at that current time. So it was kind of a interesting switch in the things that you were excited or not excited about at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, during that time, if you go back and listen to our episodes, we talked a lot about Coach Hoppe's revenge tour because the year before was not or was underwhelming, certainly to her and Auburn soccer standards. But they had a really good year. I think they surprised a lot of people bouncing back the way they did. But like you said, kind of flipped on a switch there in the end. It was not announced before the season or during the season. It was, so there wasn't like this kind of farewell tour, which doesn't seem like in her nature. But there was at the end of the year, it was kind of like that was going to be it for her.
Yeah.
And we talked about it a lot. A very successful career and a very lasting legacy of the kind of person she's been as a representative of Auburn and Auburn athletics. And so certainly I think she's still around, but wish her the best and exciting times for a new regime. With Coach Armstrong, who's someone who's familiar with Auburn, and they'll be getting kicked off, earlier than 75 days for football. So, going to be a really fun year for them, and for the first time in a long time, get to see maybe some differences in the Auburn soccer kind of roster and style of play and things like that.
Yeah, we're definitely excited for Coach Armstrong being back as being an Auburn guy. But the legacy that Coach Karen Hoppe has left is going to be lasting, and certainly we talked about our fondness for her and her program, and how she's just been a staple for Auburn athletics for so long in the soccer program, and is going to be greatly missed. And I'm still pitching the idea. Can we please change it from the Auburn soccer complex to the Hoppe? Just imagine, get to the Hoppe, get to the Choppa. I think, you know where I'm going. Get to the Hoppe. I'm just saying, please name that now. But that is at least a little quick overview of what happened athletics wise in the fall. Now, as we move here, there are technically programs that start their competitions in the fall, kind of carry over through the winter and really kick up in the spring. We're just kind of putting them where they make the most sense. And that's kind of where it starts with winter. You have men's and women's basketball, gymnastics, equestrian, swimming, and diving. Quick overview real quick, and then we'll take some time. Men's basketball, Final Four and number 1 overall seed. Women's basketball, not a great year, 12-18, a little bit of a surprising regime change from Johnny Harris now to Larry Vickers. Gymnastics, 13-9 on the season to regional competition in the NCAA tournament up in Seattle. Equestrian was dominant in the regular season, 11-4, right? And a little bit of a disappointment in the postseason. Swimming and diving, an okay year, 32 overall is their final ranking for the men, and women was 35. So obviously we start where everyone's biggest excitement of what for the winter season was, and that was Auburn making the Final Four. Austin, you and I I've been doing this in some capacity, and you've obviously been involved at E2C Network. The last time I think you were involved when the last Final Four happened. Yeah. Did you think that we would be still doing this and talking about a second Final Four?
Still doing this is one question. Talking about another Final Four is another. No, that 2019 team was something we all got the taste. But I think we all believed Bruce would get back there. And he's had successful teams in between. Just that didn't make a Final Four, but or I don't know, a pandemic took it away from him. But I think that
I'm convinced. I'm telling you, Austin, that team was going to go on a run. I'm telling you.
But we talked about it afterward, debated it, kind of went through this was the best Auburn men's basketball team in history. And that it was an exciting year that certainly headlined the Auburn athletics year. One that from start to finish was just a dominant team. Went on a run in the NCAA tournament to cap it. Couldn't get it all the way done, but doesn't really take away from just what an exciting year with incredible plays, incredible players, household names competing for Auburn and Bruce Pearl, and gosh, it's a year I certainly soon won't forget.
Yeah. And obviously within that too is Auburn being ranked the number 1 overall seed, which was a first time. We talk about Bruce Pearl knocking off these little milestones or things that have never been done at Auburn. Let's just throw in, how can we forget this? He becomes the winningest coach at Auburn throughout
Great point.
this whole year. I mean, this year, you just don't think there's another thing he can check off the list, but he finds a way to do it. And so it just made for probably out of the big three or the major sports that everybody's pays attention to, the one that really captures your attention this year, and deservedly so, with a great coach, a great team, individuals on this team, your Dylan Cardwells, your Janai Brooms, that really endear themselves to the Auburn family. Everyone does, but those guys especially. It was just great storylines all year. Obviously, a little bit sad we weren't able to get over that Final Four hump to make it to the national championship game, but no less proud of what they've accomplished. Women's basketball, on the other hand, was a little bit of a little bit different. I was a little bit surprised that even with a 12 and 18 year that we swapped head coaches. Johnny Harris was fired. Larry Vickers was brought in, and certainly we're very excited for his new beginning for Auburn and what he's already done. We've talked about that a little bit, but am I speaking for you too much and saying this was a little bit surprising?
It was surprising. I think we talked about that a little bit. I don't know if everybody really saw it coming or if everybody really agreed it was the right course of action in terms of the fan base and when it all came out. It certainly was an underwhelming year. In the same vein as you just talked about milestones, we certainly could chronicle that on the show. She had made a lot of headway and checking off certain of those boxes. And the trajectory looked like it was heading in the right direction. But a change was made, and that decision is here and gone. Coach Larry Vickers, certainly successful in his own right at Norfolk State and has gotten teams to the tournament repeatedly. So going to be really interesting to see another change with the Auburn women's basketball program as they try to get this a very storied program. I think a lot of people forget that. There's a lot of success in the history of that program. And so he's the next one to try and right the ship.
Yeah, obviously, we're sad to see anybody go, but certainly if there were decisions made, we know we're not privy to all the information. And so you just kind of have to learn to accept that as a fan and as a commentator on it, that you may not have all the information, but we're excited for Larry Vickers, thankful for Coach Johnny Harris, and sad it didn't get continued because I really enjoyed talking about her program and talking about her teams, really thought that she was a great leader for Auburn as well. So a little bit of a somber note for the winter side of things here. But those were probably the two major things to discuss in the winter sport. Certainly not the only. We're just glossing over this thing. There are things we're not having time to talk about here. Let's talk about spring, and certainly this is more fresh. But you can't do a recap without putting the completion of the story of Auburn spring sports into this. So a lot to mention in here very quickly before we spend some time on a few things. Baseball. Hey, we just talked about that recently. 41-20. Made it to the Super Regionals and hosted the Super Regionals for the very first time. Softball, first years under the coaches Malveaux, as you will all be calling them soon enough, 35-24 in their first year. Men's golf made it to the final 8, lost to Virginia, unable to defend their national title. Women's golf made it to the regionals, but Anna Davis made it 2 individual championships at NCAA national championships. We had men's and women's tennis with pretty solid years. Coach Zabo in his first year had the women very strong into the super regionals for them, ending 25-7. And Coach Bobby Reynolds in men's tennis, 20-11, made it to the NCAA tournament to the second round, I believe, of what it is, or however that works in
I think
tennis.
that's right. Yep.
Yes. And finally, track and field, which we're definitely going to end this segment on. Had strong years overall across the board, but certainly headlined by men who got 3rd place overall in NCAA championships in indoor and 4th place in outdoor. So I don't want us to not talk about baseball. I know we've been talking about it a lot, but any other statements, things that you want to add about Coach Butch Thompson and hosting a super regional for the first time? I know we've talked a lot about it recently, but there's got to be something else we haven't said yet.
Well, I mean, like you said, the headlines are the super regional hosting for the first time. Just a very memorable and a historic moment for Auburn baseball. Another program who's had lots of success for Coach Thompson to do that and get them there for the first time, especially with the context of what was last year, and bouncing back and proving he is definitely still the man for this job. We will not be having any further discussions on if he is not.
Still bitter about that. Huh?
But just an incredible year. I think when you look at the guys that were on this team, the leaders, who have had very successful Auburn careers, and Ike Irish, Cooper McMurray, among others, and then what's to come, the future, the freshmen they're still here, and the portal class they're building, certainly successful. A really fun year for Auburn baseball, in itself.
And when you look at the spring sports in general, certainly that's the headline, but there's so much good stuff in the spring sports. If you want to call it the weakest points, it's softball because it's a first year under the Malveaux, and it's disappointing that men's golf wasn't able to get a little bit further to defend that national title, but they still made it so far. So folks, we talk about lamenting what happened in your fall with your football, and we always recognize that's what's king here, and it always will be. There's nothing wrong with that, but you have so much to be proud of in these spring sports for Auburn, individually, as a team, so much to go on. And let's just talk about this track and field. We don't get to talk about them enough here, but when we get the opportunity to, we're going to gush about Coach Leroy Burrell and what he's done, taking over from Coach Ralph Spry a couple of years back, who had a strong end to his career here at Auburn too. But we have gone from being recognizable in the track and field space to now 2 years in a row being in position to win a national title, at least on the men's side of things. Last year, 1 point away from winning outdoor national championships on the men's side. This year, they come in fourth, and we're very close in the point spread, depending on which events, that
came really close.
For. But they did get third place overall, so one higher in indoor. So obviously, I have grown in my affinity for track and field since doing what I do now, covering the Auburn Experience. We used to do Tiger Tracks, and Jessica and I just talk about this all the time. I guess we just had to stop doing that show for them to improve. That was the recipe. Not a great coach and a great program.
Yeah, no, that's right. Coach Leroy Burrell continues to impress me. Came from a very successful program he built in Houston at his alma mater to coach Auburn, and has had an immediate impact with this team. This was his second year. Am I right in that, or third?
I believe technically this would be his third year if I've got my numbers correct.
I think that's right. Well, and 2 out of the 3 years has them very close to winning or placing for a national championship podium or on the podium, and just a remarkable job. So I know we said it last week, but if you can remember, the Auburn athletics calendar does not end after baseball and softball. There's still these athletes that play track and field in Tracktown, USA at the NCAA championships. And if you were not keeping up with it this week, you missed out. But now they did not get the team national championship, like Kyle said. They were 1 point away last year, just a few points away this year. And it was a really exciting end. It definitely came down to the last 2 events this year, if you were following it. But like Kyle said, had some individual national championships again this year for Auburn track and field. Jacoby Tharp won the 110-meter hurdles, which is just an unbelievable feat when you think about it. There's no way I could
running
jump
fast and jumping just doesn't seem like that should go together.
Especially if I'm not being chased by like a bear.
That's different.
I'm being chased by a bear. I feel like I'm gonna run and jump as much as I can to survive. But just for competition's sake, Jacoby Tharp's the best at it in the country. And then again, the 4x100-meter relay team wins the national championship. The back-to-back team with different individuals on the team. So whatever's happening on how they train for that and how the system is in place for Coach Burrell and his staff, they have got it figured out. Congratulations to those individuals and Jacoby Tharp again on just amazing job of representing Auburn and being victorious at the national championships.
Yeah, and don't forget too, the women had several representatives there as well to place them within the leaderboards. Several places further down, but to have people there to be in a spot to compete for those points is a big thing. You got to get people to the national championships to be able to even have a shot at doing what they're doing. The men certainly are in a great position right now, 2 years in a row coming within points of being in that number 1 overall spot. So I feel like we can rest assured that Auburn track and field under Coach Leroy Burrell is here to stay. Back-to-back 4x100. I mean, just the relay team was just outstanding, men's and women's. A lot to be excited about. Don't forget, football season to track and field season. That is how, and really it shouldn't even be football season. It should be soccer, because I think they're the first ones to get going. Soccer season to track and field season. That is your Auburn athletic calendar year for 2024 to 25. Certainly we'll do this again next year. With our final main topic this evening, we're going to go over and focus on football for a little bit. This past week, we got the announcement. I think that is exciting, but since they started doing this last year, it's a little bit underwhelming because they sell it like, hey, we've got some game kickoffs times for you, but really,
don't worry. We're going to help. We're just going to do this. Don't worry. We're going to help you plan this time. Like, don't worry. You'll have time in advance to figure out how long. Actually, we're just going to tell you it's flex the entire year and do the same crap we've been doing to you the last few years. But don't worry, we're going to help you. That's what it is.
Austin has no feelings on this whatsoever.
I did this last year, and I said I wasn't going to be this annoying about it, but this is a joke.
Let's acknowledge it's very frustrating because the way this was,
joke.
It is, yes, it is in some people's mind a joke. It is frustrating because the way it was billed when they announced that they were going to be giving these times and windows early, as actually you were going to know exactly when you were going to be telling.
Help you.
We're going to help you.
Let us help you. No, wrong.
With that being said, there are some things to be excited about in this, and there's a couple little bit of pieces of information I want to cover in this. Remember, we did discuss, I think last week, that the first 3 game times have already been announced. As a reminder, Baylor at 7 p.m. on Friday, the 29th, followed next week, first home game, 6:30, Ball State, evening game, South Alabama, homecoming, scorching, we're all going to die, 11:45.
So it is possible to tell us actual times this early in advance. That's what I'm hearing, Kyle.
Feels possible.
Okay,
but
just making sure.
So after that, we got everything else. We do have one other game time that is official that we will get to. They cared enough to give us that. But let's talk about it, and then maybe we can offer some predictions of what it might be at the end. Oh, real quick though, if you didn't hear, Baylor has announced that they are going to do a blackout. The blackout on the Brazos. The Brazos is the river that runs right alongside the stadium. If you're going, you'll get to see it. It's a very cool sight, the way it's all set up.
Yes.
So they are going to be blacking us out, and that feels a little bit, kind of makes you twitch a little bit after the last time.
No, don't bring that up. Don't bring that up.
We got to acknowledge all the history, Austin.
All right.
Let me just say this. For me personally, that Georgia game was a bad night in general as well. Not even going to get into it here. So it was just a bad day all the way around for me. But we're referencing when Georgia blacked us out and beat the brakes off us. Okay. Brazos on blackout, whatever. Blackout Brazos.
Yeah. So I'm just asking your opinion on this because you're attending as well as I am.
And right? Trying to. Yes. Yeah.
We're trying to. So what color? Well, I know you don't usually abide by colors because you wear your E2C shirt, but you're not going to be wearing a black E2C shirt. So what color would you think the Auburn family should wear?
It probably should be orange.
Yeah, I think we make this look like Halloween.
Halloween in August.
Now, that's not super fun. I get it, but I think that's the blue could blend. The white is just not going to help. I think it's orange too. I'm with you.
We're all going to be sweating anyway, so what does it matter what color it is?
I mean, now that is the key. Now, look, I think we've talked about this before. Kyle and I both have family members that went to Baylor or large Baylor fans. Look, Kyle and I complain about wearing white in September. These people are telling their fans to wear black in the middle of Texas in the August heat. That's on y'all. If that's what you want to do, that's what you're going to do.
You do you, man. Listen, you live your life.
Y'all have a good time with that.
Seems like a bit of a crash out, but I'm
gonna walk by and pour some water on you as you're passing out.
All right, let's get to the rest of the game. Windows, not times, one time. Let's start off with Oklahoma. Here, I'll run through these real quick and we can talk through them. Oklahoma, and here's how it all does. Early window is 11 to 12. Afternoon window is 2:30 to 3:30. The night window is 5 to 7, and these are all central times. Flex window is 2:30.
Oh my gosh.
to 7. Yes,
gosh.
there's that lovely flex window. So let's start with it. Oklahoma, first time going to Norman, Oklahoma. It is a flex window, followed up with an afternoon window for Texas A&M. Night game for the Deep South oldest rivalry. And by the way, for those of you who watch live, he froze on my camera as his hands go up in the air. So that was a great shot. More on that in a second. Flex for Missouri, a home game at Arkansas, will be an early kickoff, which probably wouldn't be too bad for that time of year. Flex for Kentucky back at home. Afternoon. Vanderbilt's finally getting some love with afternoon games here. Mercer will be a 1 p.m. kickoff at Auburn, and then Alabama, of course, will be flex, but we all know what that means: 2:30, 3 o'clock, something like that. All right. What do you want to talk about in this? Do we just need to go with the obvious?
I mean, first and foremost, if I'm reading this correctly, Auburn will only play before 1 o'clock twice total.
So we have 11:45
in the morning in
yes.
Arkansas, right?
Yes, that's correct.
For all of us that really hate those early games, that's pretty good for twice. And Mercer's like a half. That's 1 p.m. So, for the early window to only have 2 of those is pretty good. That surprised me. Just, the years Auburn has had, the teams that have struggled usually get those early windows a little more frequently. For Auburn, I think that speaks to their brand and the optimism a lot of people have, but not bad on the early window side.
Yeah, definitely is something to you can read into it whatever you want, but I think that is a sign, whether it's about the program getting better, and that's what the expectation is, but the viewership, what Auburn fans and brings to the table, because let's be honest, all of this is made about money. All decisions in this sport and college sports is made about what will give them the viewers, what will give them the money for the ad revenue, all that kind of stuff. Obviously the big story here, other than these aren't actually times, is that lovely, beautiful, amazing first week in October night game kickoff with the Georgia Bulldogs. Cue all of the adult men barking very sadly across the nation. I am so excited that we can already plan for what will hopefully be just a warm October day with a slightly crisp evening when that first waft of fall air rolls through Jordan Hare on the plains with their new video board, and those barking grown men come into the stadium all drunk before even at that point. I listen, regardless of what happens, this is the stuff that college football is made for. Auburn and Georgia at nighttime. This is exciting.
From your lips to God's ears. It not to take away, but it'll be the first time Auburn's back at home in about a month, with at Oklahoma, at Texas A&M, and then a bye week, October 11th. That's about the time you want it in down south in Auburn with the air and the fall. Man, I really hope so, because that would be freaking awesome. That it has the vibes of when we all found out the A&M game last year was going to be at home and at night. Just the ones where it's like, oh yeah, that's where Jordan Hare shines. Sam makes a great point. Georgia after a bye too. There's going to be so much pent up energy for that game. And so I can't wait. That is definitely the one that jumped out at me when I first saw it. I could not believe they gave us that game at night. Not even a flex, just straight up telling you it's at night, and the money's going to go crazy. That's absolutely right. And if Auburn's having the year that we hope they're having by then, it'll be a big time game. Couldn't ask for anything better. So that's definitely the headliner of this window, early kickoff windows announcement.
Obviously, I don't want to be blasphemous about this, but this is where the phrase "blessed and very much so" comes in right now.
Amen.
It's just what's going on. I do want us to give some predictions for what these windows might be, but anything else stick out to you? I want you to answer that, but I guess the only thing that I start thinking about is how much more lucky can Auburn get. They've got at home 2 other flex windows. Could they potentially get one other night game out of those? Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I'm thinking about the ones that are not. Okay, let me just.
I'm just saying it says
2:30,
flex.
2:30 Iron Bowl. You know what's happening.
It says flex. I'm just saying that they could have put afternoon on it. It's a possibility.
Austin,
and
I'm
I
sorry.
know
I'm just going to burst your bubble. It's 2:30. I'm sorry.
I'm just saying it's a possibility. And if it were to ever happen, it'd be great to happen at Auburn. We're talking about the Iron Bowl. Could it go tonight? Are you saying absolutely not? There's no chance. Because I'm saying there's definitely a chance because it says flex.
There's obviously a chance, but I just know how well that game performs at that time slot following the big game as they over posture.
Could it be better? Could it be better?
I mean, it could, but I just doubt it. And maybe y'all can clip this and rub this in my face come November. But
so what I'm hearing you say though is you would welcome it. You'd be all for it.
Now, can I just say this? I love night games in Auburn, no matter what the opponent is. There is something kind of special about a 2:30 kickoff because by the time the game ends, it is nighttime at that time of the year.
Sure, and with daylight savings, it's later. Yes, I get it. I get it.
Both worlds. I'm just saying.
I'm not against it. I'm just saying that sometimes in November it's still hot. So I'm just saying I'd like to see it. But I mean, the other home games that you were alluding to with Missouri and Kentucky, I could see go either way. I think that as we talked about, Jordan-Hare at night is a different animal. I think that it does well for TV and those kind of things. It's probably going to be a lot. That's why they're doing this. It's going to be dependent on how the year goes. I think that'll be a big factor for the opponents as well. Yeah. And so we'll just have to see. But I could definitely see Auburn getting a couple more, especially if the Auburn at night against Georgia does well and goes well. Who knows? But we'll see. It's a good slate for Auburn. I think it's about as good as you can ask for.
And we suffered the last couple of seasons with some 5 games in a row at home, which is awesome in one sense, but not in the scorching death of September, which is basically summer for all of Alabama, all the Southeast, but for definitely the state of Alabama and Auburn. But I digress. Okay, let's do some quick predictions here. We have got all of these windows. We know 4 game times officially. Let's go one at a time. Oklahoma is flex, meaning 2:30 to 7. Your prediction, Austin, when will that kickoff be?
I'm giving an exact time.
Whatever. Yeah, let's do exact times just to make it simple.
Oh, dear gosh.
Come on.
5:07.
Step out on the ledge here.
I'll say afternoon. So, can I say just 3:30?
Yeah, okay. I'll accept there's 3:30. I'm going to say because Oklahoma's going to
see, the other part of this is I don't know what is that's their first SEC game of the year. I don't know. That could matter.
I'm calling night game. Night game.
There you go.
They get their night game because it's the first time Auburn goes to Norman, and that'll play well on the TV. Obviously, it's dependent about what else is going on. A&M is an afternoon kickoff time, so not hard to predict, but you want to take a shot at it? An hour window.
3 on the dot.
I'll go 3 with you as well. Now, night kickoff is going to be obviously 5 or 7. Is there any chance that they don't put this thing at 7?
It's well, I don't know. I don't with ABC doing it now. I don't remember what their tendencies are. I don't see it being at 5, but I could see it being 6 or 6:30.
Sure,
if they start at 7 too, but it's in that window. It's not going to be between the 5 and 6 hour.
I think it's going to be 7, but on the dot, because I remember when they've done the Auburn and Georgia games, that's kind of they have it. What would be quote unquote the later part of that window because everybody's ready, primed up, all that stuff. So I think it's going to be that. All right, back to flex for Missouri. What do we got there? That's at home. What do you think?
I'm going to say that one's an afternoon, like 3 o'clock. And I'll give my reasoning here in a second.
I think I agree with you on that. What's your reasoning?
Well, it has to do with the Kentucky.
Oh, okay. Sorry. So early, we know it's early. It's going to be before lunchtime. That one's obvious and not like a lot of the other ones are.
Hey, that just means it's an away game, people. So you better be cooking the bacon early so you can watch that's actually a pretty good setup for you. Go ahead, cook your bacon, watch Auburn cook it. It'll be good.
There you go. He's already got a prediction out there. Kentucky's flex. What's your thoughts?
So I think that one's at night, and there's no really solid basis of why I think this, but other than I think the Auburn Missouri is still such a weird game.
Mm-hmm.
Auburn Kentucky, while they're not rivals of any sense, it's a traditional SEC game. I think that probably looks a little bit better. I don't think they give you both night games, but I think Auburn gets a night one there, with Missouri being the afternoon one.
I could see them giving us both. They probably won't night games in that situation, but it feels to me, if I'm going to predict the night game is going to be on the road at Oklahoma, I got to go in the flex situation to like a 2:33 kickoff there for that one.
Yuck.
Vanderbilt, do you have a preference of 2 or 3? He said, whatever.
I don't care. Auburn North, I don't care.
Whatever time Diego Pavia doesn't play well, that'll go. And finally, the big one, what we've debated about earlier, the flex situation for Alabama. What is your prediction? What time will it kick off?
We're going in nighttime. We're going in nighttime under the lights for Jordan-Hare Stadium, the Iron Bowl. I think they're going to string it out. I think if the season goes really well, which is probably the depending factor here, let's just be honest. The season goes well for Auburn. I think that it could be a big time night game. They'll build it up all day long. ESPN will want something ABC will want something to talk about all day long and gear people up ready for. You put some lame game like Georgia Tech in 2:30 and then Auburn, Alabama is the nightcap for you.
I hate to burst all your bubbles, but
no, it's not. Nope.
2:30. I'm sorry. It is
somebody clip this.
2:30 is when the Iron Bowl kicks off now, and until I'm proven wrong, 2:33, that window, I will stand by that. I'm not saying I want that, folks. Please hear me. I'm not saying that's what I want. I'm just saying that's what it is. We talk about things that we wish the way it was, wish the way it could be, but then there's the way things are. And the Iron Bowl is that afternoon game. And I think it's fine, but maybe it would be fun to have a night game. But I'm going to say that they stick to their guns on this one. So there you have it. There's your times, your windows, and our predictions for 2025 Auburn football. We'll see as we get closer what those times actually will be. That's going to do it for episode 129 of the Auburn Experience podcast. Thank you guys for hanging out with us this evening. If you want to keep up with me, do so on X at Kyle Loomis 24. Where can they find you?
Yeah, on X, on Instagram at Austin G. Scott. Athletic season's over, Kyle. It's time for us to make our money here on the summer episodes of E2C Network. So we'll have to see what happens.
Either make our money or make our nonsense. But even if it's nonsense, it's fun
one
nonsense. It's one and the same, and it's about the Auburn Experience. So I'd rather be nonsense in the Auburn Experience than no sense and not in the Auburn Experience. You see what I did there?
Yeah.
All right. Sorry, the dad jokes are flowing today on Father's Day. With that being said, thank you for spending some time with us on episode 129. Until we talk to you again, War Eagle.
War Eagle.